What is going on, guys? Carter here with Edge Mindset. We've got another unboxing for you. But first, let me set the stage on this thing. So if you don't want to hear me babble and yippity yap and talk about what led to this knife, skip ahead. Like maybe, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, something like that. So this knife is interesting and I'm a little apprehensive about opening it. So I bought this off of a Facebook group and it's from a seller who kind of came out of nowhere. He has no presence in the knife community. He joined one group. It was a Strider buy-sell group. This is a Strider, by the way. And he had some very cool vintage knives available. He knew nothing about these knives. In fact, he originally started off as asking people about these knives, what they might be worth, that kind of a thing. So it was very, I don't know if I want to say sketchy, but it was a little, yeah. He didn't have a history of buying and selling, and he didn't have a history on there. His profile looked legit. He looked like a real person, but he had no history, didn't know anything about the knives. But he had all of these. Here we go. It is the correct knife. It is the correct knife. This is a Strider RC. Got to tighten up that pivot a little bit. Strider RC with that thick lockup right there. Very cool. So, first phase, successful. This is the correct knife, and it looks like it's in insane condition. In fact, it looks brand freaking new. You can see right there the Strider logo. So some of you may be like, what kind of a Strider is this? Well, this is one of the attempts Strider made to kind of get out of the normal SMF, SNG type thing, right? And this was them doing something a little different and a little bit cooler and a little bit more organic. And it is a really cool knife. Now, I am going to need some of your guys' help here that know about RCs and RCCs a little bit more than I do, because I don't know that much about them. They were actually ahead of my time when I first got into Striders. Obviously, I was aware that they existed, but I didn't know much about them. They weren't being produced when I got into Striders. In fact, I think like these stopped being made, at least the RCs, maybe in 2008, I want to say. Like quite a while ago. It's a pretty early knife. This thing is in crazy condition. You can see it's got the radius lock face from those early Striders. Recurved blade right there. I'm assuming S30V. Does it say? Yep, S30V right there. No Paul Boss heat stamp on this. It's got a cool, different kind of tiger striping. In fact, you can't even really call that tiger striping because it's more swirl. I love that swirl pattern. It's got like a cool bolster, titanium bolster that's all flamed. And then it's got like this kind of, I don't know, it almost looks like an insect. It almost looks like a grub or something, but a two-piece bolster with G10 scales right here. And then kind of a sub frame lock. So a little bit ahead of its time. You got to remember, this is from a long time ago. This was a pretty bold move from Strider. I think this is a really cool design. They should totally bring this back. So where I need help is I swear I've seen two different versions of the RC, where the biggest difference is how thick these liners are. So this has a very thick liner, but I've also seen these with liners that are quite thin. So if anybody knows, did one come before the other? Is this the like OG RC and then they kind of thinned it out and made it lighter, or what's the dealio? And then the other thing, wow, this is pretty cool. The other thing is that there's an RCC, which is a simpler, smaller knife. I believe it only comes in like a Gunner Grip G10. But this one is the original bad boy. Wow, look at that. How cool is this thing? Another time capsule piece. This thing looks pristine. Like it literally just looks like how you would get it brand new from the Strider guys. What a cool knife. You can see how big it is. Let's get a weight. It's really heavy because it has, look at this backspacer, this titanium backspacer. Everything is flamed. Titanium subframe lock. I believe you would consider this a subframe lock. Maybe. Does it have over travel? I mean, it does kind of, because it hits that scale right there. Really cool how this pattern kind of goes through all this titanium and then on the G10 here. So, you know, obviously if you're not into Striders, you're like, what's the big deal with this thing? It's not that cool. It's another big, heavy Strider knife. But for us fanboys, 9.3 ounces. Heavy boy. For us fanboys, this is really cool to see something this old in such good condition of a discontinued model like this. Just really, really cool. And it just kind of goes to show, you know, you got to risk it for the biscuit. Not that these are impossible to get. Like, they come up, but one of these older ones with the thick lock bar and in this good a condition, you can see the pocket clip has no marks. I mean, this thing has not been carried. You don't see one in this kind of condition very often. And I got it for, you know, not a steal, right? It wasn't like it was some crazy price where the dude was doing his best to get as much money as possible for these. He wasn't an idiot. So, I mean, they were priced decently well, but because he was unknown and people were reluctant to kind of, you know, take a risk on him, I was able to kind of get this. And I was able to think on it for a little while too. Normally something like this would just fly off the shelves and then you'd be pissed because you'd realized you missed it like an hour later. But with this one, I had a couple days to kind of be like, man, should I take a risk and try to do it? And I did it, and this is really, really cool. What an awesome knife. Let me know down below. What do you think? Do you think this is something that Strider should bring back? I don't know if they could. At least not in this form. Because it seems like manufacturing and materials have gotten so expensive. I just don't see something like this being made in the US for a price that people would actually kind of pay, you know, if that makes sense. This was kind of a golden era time where a small company like Strider could make something with this amount of machining, this amount of precision. Like, look at all this titanium. Look at all the milling on here. They could make something like this for a decent price. Now, these were always expensive, right? Striders have always been kind of expensive, but I can only imagine what something like this would cost to make in the US right now. It would be a lot, especially for a smaller company like Strider, right? I mean, even something like Zero Tolerance, if they wanted to make something like this, I'm guessing even Zero Tolerance, who has access to machining and can move a lot of units and have a good distribution center so they can reduce their margins on each item, I would see them selling something like this with this amount of titanium and work for probably like $700 maybe. And that's Kershaw, that's Zero Tolerance. So a smaller company like Strider, I mean, for them to bring this back, it would cost a lot for one of these. So pretty cool they were able to do this back in the olden times. It's a pretty cool knife. Let me know down below, what do you think of this? The RC from Strider. What do you think? I don't think it got the credit it deserves. I think if they were able to come out with something like this right now, it would fly off the shelves. If they could do it at a reasonable price. But I don't know. Let me know down below. All right, guys. Take care. Hope you enjoyed checking out this cool piece of history from Strider. I'll talk to you later. See ya.